So the very first step in the strategy process is to do a social media audit of your current engagement numbers. You can do this using a tool that lives within your social channels. It's called the Social Insights, along with reporting tools like Google Analytics to see traffic from social to your website. The purpose of this first step is to create a starting off point or benchmarks, but you'll also glean information about your audience demographic, your content engagement, and so much more. There's a ton of information that you can gather, and this is a really important step. And you'll kind of hear me probably repeat this because you'll use this information in virtually every step of the strategy process. And then I just wanted to show, I'm sure you guys are familiar, but the Facebook Insights. Please ignore my notifications. So this is a pretty general display of metrics here, but it still encompasses the key metrics that you'd want to be looking at. And for a social audit, beyond just this page, you can actually export data, which is awesome. This is something that I really like about Facebook, that they give you this information for free. And you can look at information from the page level and the post level. And I would very much recommend to do this while you're doing a social audit, because you get really deep into the weeds with all of your metrics here. And then you can change the date ranges and all of that good stuff. Okay, so I haven't figured out a great way to do this, so apologies, really quick, switching back. Okay, great. So once you've done this, I would encourage you to take your time here and look at all of the engagement numbers that you can. Again, every social platform has an insights tool. Facebook, I guess I would probably say, is the most robust, but Instagram has it if you have a business page, Twitter has it, and LinkedIn as well. So once you have all of this information, you can start creating your goals. I think we have another poll.
We do, yes. So,
yeah, so we just kind of wanted to see how you're using social media now, what kind of goals you have in place.
Okay, very cool.
And if you can't tell, I can't see the feedback, but Signe can. So she's just relaying that.
Sorry, guys. So yeah, a lot of people are saying all of the above, but we also have a lot of people saying to further your story and mission, and to engage with your audience.
Awesome. Yeah, it's likely that you'll have a few different goals, but you really want to be specific here and prioritize during this step. So after you conduct that social media audit, you'll have a pretty clear view of your standing point, and using that information, you can start creating SMART goals that tie back to your organizational objectives. So if you're utilizing social media to increase awareness, for example, that really falls under the umbrella of the bigger goal of growing your brand, right? So everything kind of ties back together. For nonprofits, we commonly see goals of increasing engagement, especially donor engagement and donor retention. And again, that brand awareness. So getting people to recognize your brand and getting people to pay attention there. So an example of a SMART goal would be to increase website traffic driven by social by X% in a specific period of time. So SMART, I'm sure you guys all know this, stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So beyond this, all of these goals will need to be tracked. So in order to make sure that you're looking at the right metrics, you want to create what are called KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. So during this step, you would utilize reporting tools like Google Analytics to measure and assess your progress and ensure that you're able to determine if you're actually hitting those goals. So an example of a KPI is a link click, a follow, downloads, donors, and they typically fall in 4 areas of focus within social media. So if you were creating like an overarching digital strategy, they would be different. But within a social media strategy, they fall under either engagement, reach, leads, or conversions. And this is really important because we often see that clients get really derailed by all of the metrics that they're looking at because they haven't determined their KPIs. So for example, if your goal is engagement, you want to be looking at things like link clicks, comments, mentions, and things like that. And don't worry so much about those other metrics because they're not your KPIs and they don't fall under your goal. With all of the numbers that you're going to be seeing during this process, it is really easy to get a little bit discouraged. So I would just say really stick to your goals and think about that area of focus. Okay, so all of the numbers are great, but those clicks are coming from an actual human person with a heartbeat, right? So you want to learn as much as you can about the people who you're engaging with, who are engaging with your content. Pretty much everything that you do on social should be done with your audience in mind. So for nonprofits, what we've seen is that target audiences typically fall into a few different categories. Donors, of course, volunteers, and beneficiaries. And a practice that we do for our clients here at Arcstone is to create personas, which basically are fictional representations of your ideal audience members. And those are created based on demographic data and information about that specific audience. So for example, we'd have a persona for each of these different audiences because there's not a ton of overlap there. So one for volunteer, one for beneficiaries, and then one for donors. And to learn the demographics of your current social media following, you can use those native analytics tools that you were using during the social audit. So you'll glean a lot of information during that step. And I would be thinking about your personas and your target audience while you're collecting that information during the social media audit. So I will say that this process of creating personas is super powerful. It really allows you to understand who you're talking to, what their struggles are, and what they're most likely to engage with, and what platforms they're on. Also super important. So with different audiences, it's not uncommon that they are more or less active on different channels. So an example of this could be like if you're looking for donors or corporate sponsors, you're more likely to reach those people on a platform like LinkedIn because it's B2B. A little research here really goes a long way. I would say, again, use your social audit to determine where you're currently getting the most engagement. And then ramp it up, focus on those platforms where you're getting results. Social media is a lot of work and a lot of times it falls to whoever has time. And that's a bummer, but with that time crunch, it is just really important to be strategic, and going through all of these steps will help save time in the long run and also help you to focus in on those platforms that are actually going to drive results. Okay, content selection. I feel like a lot of times organizations get a little confused or lost in the weeds here, but just keep in mind that your goal with content, it's simple. You want to give people what they want, right? So in general, people will follow nonprofits online in order to gain information on their programs, gain information on their events or campaigns, just to stay up to date with your organization. And people on social want to be informed, they want to be educated, they want to be inspired. So you really just want to produce content that's valuable to your audience, right? So providing them with inspirational or heartwarming stories is really valuable to them. And then in turn, when you do ask for people to get involved, they're much more likely to take action because they'll feel that connection with you. Okay, in terms of what to share, use the information that you glean from social insights to determine the content that has the highest engagement numbers. So that's something that will be shown on that exported Excel sheet in really granular ways. So you'll be able to see a ton of information there. And a general rule of thumb that, that we use is to provide 3 times more value than you ask. So that means have 3 posts that are educational, inspirational, or informative, for every one post that you ask for donations or volunteers or things of that nature. Am I talking fast? I feel like I'm talking fast.
No, you're okay.
Okay. When to share. We recommend using a content calendar to help you plan and schedule posts in advance. In terms of like what time to share and what days, you can actually see all of that information within the social insights. You can see when your audience is online, down to the day, down to the time. So that's where I would start. I would say, look at that information. And if your audience is on Facebook at 10 a.m., post on Facebook at 10 a.m. You just want to increase the likelihood that they'll see the content that you're posting. And then another thing to remember is just to be consistent. So if you have the bandwidth to post once per day, awesome. If you don't, post 3 times a week and stay consistent. That'll help both audience retention, but it'll also help the algorithm, because the Facebook algorithm or Twitter algorithm, wherever you're posting, will see that you're being consistent and you're posting content that's valuable. And then for types of content, again, look at what your audience has engaged with in the past and share things like inspirational quotes, educational third-party shares, impactful statistics, testimonials. Those are things typically that get high engagement. Okay, so we talk a lot about your audience engaging with you, but you also have to return the favor. We so many times see clients post on social and then kind of wash their hands of it and never look at it again. And I would say, don't do that. The benefit of social really doesn't end at just publishing your posts. The real benefit in using social media is the ability to connect with your supporters and build community and brand loyalty. And especially now more than ever, our lives have completely turned virtual. It's everybody's online now. So audiences are really expecting that organizations will connect with them online. And social media is by far the easiest and most common way to do that. So take time to respond to comments, share posts, like your audience's posts, and just engage and humanize your presence on social. And so that's easy to say, but if you're not getting a ton of engagement, if you don't have any comments to respond to, it's easy to be like, well, what am I supposed to be doing, But you can actually interact as a page within Facebook groups. So you can reach out and interact within groups on other pages and follow hashtags and just, be active there. And the key is just to provide valuable and relevant comments and feedback, and don't spam groups. Try to be careful with like shooting out promotional items or giving or commenting like too many asks. You really just want to be social.